Hi everybody, it's me Willow and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm back with another film review for everybody. Today we're going to be diving into Benny Safdie's new film, The Smashing Machine. This is his first solo debut film without working with his brother, which they have done Good Times and Uncut Gems. I've actually have not seen either of those films, so I am going into this pretty blind of just understanding kind of the aura that was from those two films rather than actually seeing them. I have seen a plethora of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's films and Emily Blunt's film, so who are like the leads in The Smashing Machine. We do have a couple other like ensemble characters who stood out to me as well, but this is definitely Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's film, and Emily Blunt is there for some powerful scenes as well. But Benny Safdie won the Golden Lion for directing at Venice Film Festival for this film, so I definitely wanted to see it. It got a really big standing ovation, lots of praise for the performance from Dwayne and the overall directing from Benny. And of course, he and his brother are very well known for Uncut Gems and Good Times for their filmmaking. So I was very interested in this one. I missed it at TIFF. It was very popular, and I finally got to see it today. And I definitely think it was a well done film. I think it's overall pretty solid. I think there's not like a whole lot of loose ends. I feel like we do get a pretty round story. However, I feel like we definitely could have dived a bit deeper with this film. I think a lot of the criticisms has been this doesn't do much outside of the documentary that HBO put out in the early 2000s of the same name. And a lot of people would rather go back towards that documentary with getting more information out of Mark and his situation rather than this narrative performance. And unfortunately, I'd have to agree. I have not seen the Smashing Machine documentary, but I do feel like I wish I had more background about Mark, about UFC, about specifically Pride, the Japanese league that they had that Mark was fighting in along with his other friend Mark. So very interesting, but I feel like I don't have a lot of background knowledge on Mark Kerr or on UFC. I knew like a little bit of it, but I really liked the conversation that Mark has in the beginning in like the waiting room with that older woman. But I really liked the conversation that they had together where Mark was trying to explain the basics of UFC and like the differences of the backgrounds of each of the fighters that come in to the ring. So I found that very interesting, and I wish that maybe they focused a bit more on the sport and like the illegal moves that happen throughout the film, because there is this one illegal move that is used several times in the film, even though they have declared it to be an illegal move, and it gets contested. And is it a foul? Like what are the rules? So I wish maybe we dived a bit more into that. Even I would say the majority of the film, which is dealing with substance abuse, I feel like is just surface level, unfortunately. We do get to see a couple scenes where Mark Kerr is dealing with substance abuse. We do get scenes of him using, him scenes being sick, passed out, having to go to the hospital, a lot of these ramifications of using drugs and trying to, still maintain this certain physique to be able to fight in these intense matches. So I wish we dived a little bit deeper into that, maybe his time in rehab, because we kind of do like a time skip over when Mark is in rehab, and we focus more on the other Mark, who, if I'm being honest, was my favorite. I felt like he was the most empathetic character, and we learned a little bit more about his family and how he stays on the path. Like, he doesn't lose sight of taking care of his family, wanting to be a provider, but still getting that adrenaline high of being like achieving these great accomplishments. So I really liked the juxtapositions between the two Marks and how Mark Kerr is going through these inner demons, and when he loses a match, he feels he like his mental health really does take a big dip, and that dives him even deeper into his drug use, leading to him having a really bad reaction one night. So I feel like he is always kind of lost. Like, we don't meet Mark at a time where he's not using drugs. As we get into the film, like, he's already using drugs while he's fighting. So it kind of, I don't know, like, I don't feel like a big connection to the Mark character, if I'm being honest. I felt more of a connection to the other Mark character because he was really trying to achieve this goal of winning. Like, I know that Mark was also trying to win, but I feel like he was putting up a lot of distractions, which Dawn would be one of these distractions. And rather than staying with his coaches, he goes back to like Phoenix and he drinks and like that's my thing. Like, I feel like he is not as dedicated. And Dawn said that to Mark, his trainer, at the beginning of the film, how she felt like going into the match that he loses, he was not 100% in it. He has not been, fully dedicated leading up to the fight where he was drinking, having late nights. And if you really want to win these things, you would, put up more boundaries. You would not be drinking before the big fight. You would not be using. So, I don't know. I feel like this is a pretty complex film dealing with this man's ego and taking a hit on that ego, trying to learn what his life is without this high. Because I really thought him saying how he's always chasing this high from the audience, being cheered on, winning, that adrenaline. I think it's him trying to find his life and meaning without that high. So I thought that was very intriguing. I just wish we dived a bit deeper into that, more into the mental health aspect, because I do think this whole ego and using the drugs is all driven into his mental health and how he feels like he's not worthy. And when he does get beat, he and like when he goes into one of the last fights and he feels like he can't move, all of these all play into him not feeling like he's going to be good enough, and he can't make his fans proud. He can't provide the life that he thought that he should. So very interesting, but I do feel like it is missing something, and I feel like maybe the documentary dives into that a bit deeper. Again, like, I don't know if it's because of a disconnect emotionally from the character on my part, but we do have like two deep scenes from Dwayne in the film where he's crying, and I was like laughing at those moments because his crying is just so bad. He's like crying into his hands and crying into a bed sheet, these two separate crying scenes, and he's just making the worst crying sounds, like, as an actor. It's just didn't work, like, didn't get this emotional, like, and that's what those scenes are for, like the first scene when he is crying is after losing the match, and then the second scene is when he's in the hospital after having an overdose, and both of these scenes are really supposed to make you connect with the character and understand all this trauma and hardship and the blood, sweat, and tears that he has put into this career and how he just can't get a hold of it. And I didn't feel it. So I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe others, specifically like men who are also in the sports field, would relate more to him. If anything, I think the scene that affected me the most with Dwayne's acting was when Dawn and Mark are at like the county fair and they go to see the box cars fighting each other. And Mark sees this one driver just stuck in motion as he's being hit by this other driver. And that scene was the most emotional for me because you really felt Mark feeling for this other sportsman being stuck, not having anywhere to turn, just being frozen in that moment of panic. So I really did like that scene, and I felt like he did that with just his eyes. He didn't need to have an on cue crying moment. He was able to display that heavy emotion just in the silence with the music and his eyes. I think he like looks down at one moment and looks back up and he realizes that's me. I feel stuck. That's what happened in that fight. I was locked in this illegal move and I was deemed a loser. So I really do think that was a great scene. I think that was my favorite scene by far. I think the fighting scenes between him and Emily Blunt are just crazy. Obviously, these two characters are super toxic and just keep adding fuel to the fire with the relationship, and they definitely should not be together. And the fact that they got back together after like his last fight and they get married and everything is just flippin' insane. Like everything that went down between them. Obviously, there was a lot of love between them, but just toxicity brewing off both of them on Mark's part, like picking her apart when she's by the pool, telling her she's not doing enough, and then her picking him apart, saying he just needs to get over his losses and who cares? It's just a sport, it's just a match, like there'll be another one. Both of them, just really feeding into that fire. So I think Emily Blunt was just she was fantastic. She was definitely, unfortunately, acting circles around Dwayne in a lot of those moments. I think Dwayne specifically said that he liked having Emily as a scene partner because she was comfortable and made him feel more ready to take chances because they have worked together a couple times before in the past. So I think that's nice, but it would have been better in my opinion if he had like an actress that maybe would have pushed him a bit more because I feel like he did stay very safe and comfortable and only until the end I really felt like I was looking at Dwayne. I felt like I was looking at Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I wasn't really looking at Mark Kerr until the end of the film, where we get to like the last big fight between them and the last like fight that he does in the Pride League. I thought that was very transformative and he like there's this one moment where he's doing a photo shoot at the end for the final Pride like tournament and I was like, is that Dwayne? Felt like very transformative. So I feel very wishy-washy about this film. Like there's moments that I do think are great. Like I said, at the carnival scene with Dwayne looking at the other sportsmen in the car, like I thought that was a great scene. I do think Emily Blunt's scenes with her arguing with Mark were fantastic. I really did like all of those scenes. I was like disappointed that she wasn't in the film more. I definitely think she was one of the heavyweights in the film, and even though her scenes with Mark, her and Dawn and Mark were so anxiety inducing, I felt like I was really gaining more background and learning more about them because it is true, she does stay at home and take care of the place, cook him food, try and help him with his diet regimen, and he is kind of passive aggressive towards the things that she's willing to put down and help him with. But then she's also not fully dedicated to the sportsmanship lifestyle that he is. And then when he's getting out of rehab, she is not super sympathetic to having to adjust their lifestyle and be sober possibly together. She's not willing to do that. So both of them are just so flippin' toxic, but I think they give some really good scenes together. I also have mentioned the other Mark character quite a bit, Mark Coleman. He is played by Ryan Bader, who is also a real life UFC mixed martial artist. So I thought that was really cool that he was able to make like this transition from sportsman to the screen, similar to Dwayne. He was personally my standout. I really liked what he did with Mark Coleman and his trajectory of a character between him and Mark as friends, him being the trainer, really trying to help Mark with his come up. Mark loses the match, and then we focus more on Mark Coleman, seeing how he has a family. He's trying to take care of his best friend during a hard time, but he still has that dedication to stay in the ring and work on his craftsmanship and get out there and get the gold belt. So I really liked Ryan, really impressed with his performance. I think in the second half of the film, with his fight scenes, they were really well done too. I really got the emotion between him and Dwayne having this competitive nature trying to be put on the two Marks, but really in the background, they are the best of friends and they can't let this competition get in between them. At the end of the day, they're friends and they want to see either one of them succeed. And if one of them succeeds, then it's a win for them as well. So I really like that sportsmanship being shown. Also, between one of the other characters in the first fight between Mark Kerr and his opponent, and even though there's a dirty move, at the end they still have a lot of gratitude and respect and sportsmanship between them. So again, like I don't know why we didn't dive more into the rules and the world of the UFC mixed martial arts, especially the Pride League. I feel like there were so many different cultural aspects as well to that would have been interesting to investigate. So if anything, I'm just kind of like let down that this was just like so straightforward. It really does feel like it was stripped from the documentary. I feel like Benny Safdie kind of has a documentary approach where he uses the handheld camera on his shoulder, and we get a lot of like shaky cams, a lot of the over the shoulder scenes with Mark, like in the car, kind of more like narration scenes that you would usually see in a documentary. So I'm just like upset that we don't get a lot of the Benny Safdie flair that we've seen with him and his brother. I know that Uncut Gems and Good Times are very well respected for their artistry, kind of going out there, being different, and I felt like this one was pretty standard. I do like the grain and the filter that was used in the film, and I didn't have a problem with the handheld camera that Benny uses. I do think that was pretty effective in some scenes, specifically with like the fighting matches. I really do like how those were shot. Getting up close and personal, I thought was really great. But I don't know, like I just feel like we were losing it at moments. We would get really high points between like the fighting scenes and then the argument scenes between Dawn and Mark, and then we'd have like an emotional scene between the two Marks and realizing their friendship, and then the movie just kind of ended. And I was like, okay, I guess that was 2 hours. It didn't feel like it was long, so that's good. I think the pacing was pretty well done. I think they were able to fit in a good amount of stuff in 2 hours. But for being 2 hours long, like I feel like I didn't gain like a whole lot. Like I feel like I didn't learn too much about Mark and his struggles, just kind of like the borderline. I feel like honestly it was a lot of talking rather than showing. And again, like I just didn't gain too much from this. So that's just my personal experience watching The Smashing Machine. I feel like there would be other audiences who would get much more out of this. I would say probably sportsmen, people who have been, you know, not able to achieve the trajectory in their career that they wish they could have. I think they will be able to respect this. But yeah, I was just a little disappointed. I do think there could be talks about awards with this one, but I feel like it's probably going to be the outside of my predictions. I just don't think it stands out enough to get past a lot of the competition this year. I know a lot of people have been discussing if Dwayne is going to get some nominations. I definitely think it can be a possibility in some certain categories, maybe the Golden Globes, just because there are six spots and two categories, drama, comedy. This would definitely be in the drama category. So I don't know, like there's just quite a lot of competition this year. So I feel like he doesn't, those cry scenes, they're holding him back. So I wish I don't know. I just wish he would have pushed a bit more with the role. Obviously, this is something outside of his normal, so I think a lot of people are respecting him trying to get away from that classic box office action hero and go with something with a little bit more emotional depth. I just felt like that emotional depth was lacking for, like an Oscar nomination. I think Emily Blunt does not have enough screen time to get a nomination, but of course, people have been nominated for lesser screen time than she has been. So I think she will stand out for some people. I really do like the scenes that she has. She's bold, she takes the screen as her own. But again, like I don't think it's enough to get nominations. I don't think directing Benny is going to get nominations. I don't think this would be adapted screenplay. I don't think that would get in there. And maybe the cinematography, but I wasn't a big fan of the cinematography. I felt like it was pretty standard, like I said, just with the handheld shaky cam on the shoulder, like besides that, like I didn't really get too many interesting visuals that stood out to me. And music, that would be another thing that I really liked. I did like the soundtrack and I did like the music production. I thought that was a standout. I really do like how it adds to the emotional levity of the film. So, if there was something that I would nominate, it would be the music. I also think the costumes were pretty nice too. It is kind of more of a modern day era for the costumes, but they did get everything pretty spot on. Like I have seen some comparison photos of the real life Mark Kerr, and they're able to grab those archival 2000s, like late 90s pieces and use them for the film. So I think that's pretty accurate and does help to set like the vibe, the feel, and give us an understanding of what era we're located in. So it does that really effectively. Okay, this is editing Willow. I almost forgot about hair and makeup. I think those two will be a really strong category for this film, as it is a transformative role for Dwayne to get into like the feel and the body of Mark Kerr. He definitely has some prosthetics that he's using on his face, and when in doubt, when you get the hair and makeup nomination, often comes the best leading actor nomination, so maybe they will get both. So if anything, I would nominate maybe costumes and the sound and music. And out of the entire cast, I personally would nominate Emily Blunt over Dwayne, but I know some people will have a liking to Dwayne's performance, and I wouldn't be surprised if I do see him get some nominations in the 2025-2026 award season. All right, that is my thoughts on The Smashing Machine. Definitely a mixed bag for me. I think this is probably going to be a 6 out of 10, probably like a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. There's definitely things to like about it. I wouldn't say it's like a bad film at all, but I would say more mediocre. Not anything super outstanding, and I'm glad I didn't wait in a long rush line to see this at TIFF. I'm happy that I paid my $9 for a matinee on Saturday to see this because it was enjoyable. I had a fun time. Like I said, the 2 hours, they did go by. I didn't feel like it was too long. I did have some nice scenes from Dwayne, Emily, Ryan, and the rest of the cast, but nothing that is sticking out too much for me. So let me know what you think about the Smashing Machine down below. My tagline for this film is definitely cauliflower ears, tidy whities, and a lot of sweating. The Smashing Machine is an anxiety inducing film that unfortunately does not meet the punches that it needs to get to the awards trajectory that it was hoping for. So let me know if you agree with that opinion down in the comments below. If you enjoyed my review, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button and notification button so you always know when I post videos. I'm trying to be more consistent with my content, posting multiple times a week. I'll have some more reviews. I have a review for Good Boy that's coming out tomorrow. I went and saw that double feature today with the Smashing Machine and Good Boy, so look out for that review. And if you hit the notification button, you'll always get a notification when I post. So thank you so much for all the interaction, as it really helps to push me out into the algorithm and come across more like-minded folks like you guys. So thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!